So although I asked you to install uh, Anaconda, which is a distribution for Python, but the goal of this course is not to teach you programming in Python. It is to teach you programming in general, or how to solve numerical problems using computers. Okay, so you can think of this as a computational problem solving course. Okay. So the goal is not to teach you programming. That is uh, uh, a side effect of it. Or we are using Python to solve to do this. Okay. So once you understand that, it does not really matter. It will take you like 1 week or two to pick up any other programming language if you understand the basic concepts behind programming. Okay. So, but why would we want to do programming? Any ideas? So why would we want computers to solve our problem?
solve the problems which human mind is won't be able to large problems.
The effort
to reduce the human effort and human error.
What?
To do calculations fastly.
Yeah, to do calculations faster, which might not be possible for a human being. And nowadays, the computers are being used for almost everything, for booking your tickets or anything like that. But everywhere in the background, there is a program running. Okay, a program that is running in the background of every system that you see. Okay, that program has certain inputs and it gives certain outputs. Okay, and every program has a something behind it which is called as algorithm. Okay, it is this term algorithm is not an English word as such. Means it was coined later on. It's after the name of a Persian mathematician or something like that who is being credited to give a formal format of writing algorithms. Okay, so for example, if I were to ask you to write find the square root of a number x, how would you do it? Okay, human beings are really smart. Please understand that. Compared to computers, human beings are really smart. Computers are really dumb. So you have to tell them every possible step, and in most cases the steps for computer are not the same as for a human being. I'll just give you an example here. So if I were to ask you, please find out the square root of 2, how will you do that? Forget about how to write an algorithm to do that, but how would you do it? What is the
divide by 2 wholes.
No, I think you forgot how to do.
Pairing karte hain, then we do by.
We find the biggest number. So we start with a single digit, okay, and we find the biggest number. That will do what? That will be multiplied by itself to give this or a number lower than this. Okay, so you get this. Okay, so now what remains? You're left with what? A 1. Okay, and once you do that, then you have to add a what?
2 zeros.
I also forgot. What do you do?
2 zeros add karenge, then plus 1. Then jitna remainder hai, we will add it in the.
Are you sure? I forgot the algorithm for this. If we Do 2 zeros, then what happens?
So then we will add, I think, 1 in the dividend and then 2.
Anybody remembers the algorithm for finding square root?
Sir,
Yeah.
so can't we like see 2 as like a right angle with side 1 and 1? We compute its hypotenuse.
Okay, that is what root 2 is. I want to find out the numerical value of root 2. कैसे करते हैं? Nobody remembers how to do it. वरुण याद है?
नहीं सर, इतना ही याद था मतलब।
पहला स्टेप याद था बस, जो मुझे
Yes.
याद है। Anyway, 4 आना चाहिए। 4 कैसे आएगा? आप ये ढूंढो जल्दी से। What do you do?
So ये 1 + 1 ऐड करेंगे 1 पे जो हमारा वो आया है जिससे हमने डिवाइड किया तो 2 हो जाएगा, देन इट विल बी अ 2 बिट 2 फिर 4 24 लाइक इट वो 96 से करेंगे। So we will add 1 in the जिससे हम डिवाइड कर रहे हैं 1 + 1, so we will get 2 here. Now we will add 2 4.
Okay, so I'm not getting it. Anyway, we'll do it later on. Okay, let me look it up and then we'll do it later on. Okay, there is some method, okay, to find out square root of 2. Now, somebody in the BCs, okay, before Christ era, somebody gave an algorithm which looked something like this, which can be easily implemented using a computer. Okay, which is you start with a guess. Okay, you guess something. Okay, you guess a value G. Okay, and you second step is you do G star G. Okay, if it is close enough to X, okay, you want to find the square root of X. If it is close enough to X, you say that what is your answer? G is your answer. Okay, anyway, so if otherwise, what do you do? If that is not true, otherwise, what do? You take a new value of G, okay, G new is equal to G plus X over G divided by 2. Okay, so what is this doing? Okay, we'll look at an example, then it will make life clear. So what have we done here? We have taken the average of G and X over G. Okay, and we'll keep on doing this. We'll keep on doing this until we reach this point. Okay, we'll keep on doing this. Okay, we'll check for if this is true. We'll check for this, and then we'll keep on looping. Okay, we'll keep on doing this. Let me show you an example here. Okay, so let us say I want to find the square root of 20 or 36. Let us say X is equal to 36. I want to find the square root of X equal to 36. Okay, we can start with any estimate, but we know what? We know that the square root is going to be smaller than this. Okay, let us say we are talking only about positive integers. Okay, positive numbers, positive integers. Okay, we know that definitely that square root is going to be smaller than this number. Okay, so we can start with an initial guess. Let us say G is equal to X over 2. Okay, this is my initial guess. This is arbitrary. Okay, but your final solution should not depend on the initial guess. Then your algorithm is good. Okay, so now let us look at this. So what is X equal X over 2? What is
18.
it? 18. Okay, now we find that so let us try to draw a line. Okay, and my this is 36, and we have our solution somewhere along this line. This is between 0 and 36. Okay, now we try to see what is G star G. What is that for this particular case? What is this? 18 by 18 is how much?
256.
256?
320
No, pretty sure it's not 256 because it's 2 to the power
324.
324. Okay, so which is not close to X. Is that okay? So what do? We make a new guess. Okay, what is the new guess? Now we know, so this means that if I'm choosing 18, let us say 18 has been chosen. Now I know that 18 is much larger than the square root of X. Is that correct? Because this is much larger than X. Okay, so what do? I choose a value which is on this side. How do I choose that particular value? I choose that by saying that this value, the second value that I'm using is going to be 36 divided by 18. Okay, so this is going to be 2. Now my G new is equal to what? 2 plus 18 divided by 2. Okay, so this comes out to be 10. Now we do the same thing again. What is my G star G? What is G star G now? Huh? 100. Okay, so what is now? This is obviously much greater than what is it? 36. Okay, so what do I do now? Again, this is not close to my solution. My solution should be 36. Okay, so what do I do next? I try to find G new again. What is G new going to be? It is 10 plus
2 by
36 by 10 divided by 2. Is that okay? What is this? 13.6 divided by 2 is how much? 6.8. Okay, now we put this to the test. 6.8 into 6.8 is how much? What is this? Do you have a calculator, anybody? What is this value? Obviously, you'll find that it is larger than 36. So obviously, this is not a solution. Then what do? You'll apply the G new again. You'll try to find the G new. What will the G new be? Huh?
6.8 plus 36 by 6, 6.8.
6.8 plus 36 divided by 6.8 divided by 2. Okay, what does this give you? Anybody? Anyone?
Correct.
Huh?
1 second.
5.247.
5.227. Okay. So what are you?
6.04.
6.04 आ रहा है.
6.04.
वही मुझे लग रहा था यार कि कुछ तो गलती करी है हमने. It is 6.04.
04.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So what are you doing? You look at it. What is happening? You started with 18, then you went back to 10. Okay, you went to 10, then you went to 6.8. 6.8, huh? Yeah. Then you went to 6.8. Now you are going to 6.04. Okay, depending on what kind of accuracy you want, you can stop here. Okay, you can say that this is close enough to what? The 6.04 into 6.04 is how much? How much is this?
36.48.
36.48. So we can say that this is approximately equal to 36. That is one way of, you can obviously keep on going. It is obviously going, it is going to increase your time required, but you'll eventually reach very close to 6. You will never reach 6. Okay, because for reaching 6, how many steps do you require for reaching 6? Huh? You'll require infinite number of steps. Okay, so you will never reach 6, but there is a method to our madness. Why are we choosing this particular equation for substituting our new value of G? Any idea? Any idea? So if you look at this particular equation, okay, what is happening in this case? If let us say that G was the correct solution, if G were the correct solution, then what would G nu be? If G were the correct solution, then what would G nu be?
Correct, 6 only.
Huh?
G plus
Yeah.
1/2.
Same.
Yeah. So G nu, if G were the correct solution, then G nu will be G plus X over G. What is X over G?
1.
No. It is not X over, it is not 1.
X
It's
over
equal to
G is equal
squared.
to
G.
Squared.
G.
Okay, okay, G squared. So X over G is going to be equal to G is equal to. So this is how we set up our problem. Okay, we set up our problem so that we set up a check like this. Okay, our G nu should be such that it converges to my final solution. Okay, if my solution is correct, then G nu should be equal to G old. Okay, that is how we set this up. Okay, it will become clear in a few if you start doing computations like Varun does, then it will become clear how we set these things up. Okay, but this is a simple algorithm to find out the square root of X, and I've shown you how to do that using an example. Okay, so this is very different from the way we do our square roots by hand. But for computers, we have to come up with a very detailed instructions and it is to teach a child doing square root means obviously IITians are bad at doing square roots, including the professors there. So that is not the issue, but even a child can understand square roots in a traditional manner, but computers cannot. They can, but it will be very complicated. But whereas using this algorithm, we have made that problem of solving square root much simpler. Okay, it is computationally more intensive. Okay, you are doing so many steps. Okay, whereas in this particular method, the number of steps is much smaller, but you can directly come to the answer. But in this case, the number of steps is much larger, and you're going through a very roundabout manner of finding the solution. But it is programmable. That is the point. Okay, that it is easily programmable. Okay. So now there are a couple of different kinds of languages. Okay, so computer programming languages. Not a couple of, but there are many different kinds of programming languages. But the general purpose languages that I'm talking about. Okay, so there are some specific purpose programming languages such as PHP. Okay, you might have seen whenever you visit a web page, you might see .php in the last point. Okay, for example, in Moodle. Okay, the final thing is almost always .php. Okay, so it's a web. This is specifically built for web servers. Okay, a programming language like this. Okay, but there are some general purpose, a lot of general purpose languages such as C, C++, Java, Python. Okay, so these are general purpose languages which are primarily of two different kinds. Okay, these are compiled languages, and this is an interpreted language. Okay, what is the difference between compiled and interpreted language? This Python runs a machine in the background, okay, and every line you enter, Python looks at it line by line and it executes it at that time. Okay, so this is how it works. But in compiled languages, what happens? You write the whole complete code. Okay, your complete code goes into the compiler. Okay, that converts it into, so your code, complete code goes into the compiler. Okay, and that does what? That compiles it into machine code. Okay, again, please understand that computers can only understand what?
Machine language.
0 and 1. Okay, so finally everything has to be converted into a set of zeros and ones. If I were to ask you to do this, you will probably leave computer science or anything related to computer science and run away. Okay, so that is why these general purpose languages are built, so that they do all this in the background. Okay, again, we never really wrote code in zeros and ones. We had a higher abstraction layer called as machine language. Okay, which was more complicated than writing any of the code in any of these languages. So these are also called as high level languages. Okay, high level languages. Okay, all of these are high level languages. Now this gets converted, the whole code. Okay, if you have 100 lines of code, all the 100 lines get converted into a machine code which gets executed at once. Okay, that is how it works. But in an interpreter, if you have 3 lines, each of these lines gets executed one by one. Okay, so it does not make a complete machine code at once. Okay, so this kind of languages. Now if I were to ask you to write a code in this language, then you have to write the whole 100 lines, and then obviously you can have multiple steps of debugging, but those whole 100 lines will be converted into machine language. Okay, but in this case of Python or in any interpreted language, these each line is executed one by one. Okay, so there is no machine code being generated at once. Okay, so these are usually easier for newcomers to do. Okay, and it is now for scientific programming, the most commonly used general purpose language is this Python. So that's why I also chose this as the medium for teaching this particular course. Okay, Sridhar, how much are you understanding?
Following.
Okay. So now let us move on to a little bit of Python. Let us see how Python works. Okay. So now forget about the first 2 lines. Let me delete those. Now let us say I want to print something, okay, on my screen. Okay, so we use this particular function, and I want to type let us say Sanjeev is a good student. Okay, and if I do this, okay, if I press control enter is for executing a particular set of code. Okay, and shift enter in this particular, this is not for everything. Okay, this is only for Jupyter that I'm telling you. In a normal command prompt, you will just press enter. Okay, but for Jupyter, which is a framework for writing and executing a code, and it gives you output on the same page in a very good format. So that's why I'm using Jupyter. Okay, so you can press shift enter. What will shift enter? If I press control enter, then I'll stay on the same line. Okay, and it will give me whatever the output of that particular program is. Okay, but then if I press shift enter, then it will send me to a new line. Okay, now everything in if you know anything about object oriented programming, everything in Python is an object. Okay, so 2 plus 3 if I say 2 plus 3, okay, what is my output going to be? 5. Okay, it automatically interprets according to the input that I have given. Okay, so in this case, 2 plus, so if I say, let us say, I say type, okay, 2 plus 3. So what is this giving me? What does type stand for? Type tells you what kind of
Variable.
variable do you
Input.
have, or your what kind of data do you have? Okay, what is the type of your data? Okay, that is what type tells you. Okay, so it is telling you in this case that it's an integer. Now, if I replace this, you cannot, if you know any other programming language, in other programming languages, you have to declare a variable type. But in case of Python, you do not declare variable types. It automatically assumes them based on what your input is. So let us say I do this 2.0 plus 3.0. Then what does it give me? It tells me that it is a what? Float.
Float.
What is float? What is float? Any idea what is a float?
Decimal representation of a number.
Yeah, decimal representation of a number. It is analogous to real numbers in mathematics. Okay, it tries to implement that. Obviously, it is not possible to implement real numbers accurately in programming languages. Any idea, Sridhar, what is the reason for that?
No, sir.
Huh? What is a real number? How many digits are required to represent 4 by 3 accurately?
Like many,
In decimal
Yes.
form. In decimal form, how many digits do you require to represent 4 by 3?
so many numbers.
So many, infinite numbers. Okay. So even your gigabytes or terabytes of memory is not enough to represent 4 by 3 completely accurately. Okay, 4 by 3 is a real number. But if I say, yes, let us say I do insert 4 by 4.0. So we almost always we use 0.0 to represent that it's a not an integer type. Okay, integer means that it will have only integers. Okay, so we want it to be float, so we'll add a decimal 0 to it. Okay, even if that is not required in most of the programming languages, but here you have to do it. Okay, so if I do this, what does it give me? 1.3333, however many threes are there, 5, maybe around 15 threes are there. Is that enough to represent 4 by 3 accurately?
No, sir.
No, sir.
It is not. Okay, so that is where a problem called as this this creates a problem in our computers. Okay, let me show you an example. Okay, so if I have yeah, so let me say that I have 0.1 plus 0.1. Okay, if I do this, what do I get? 0.2. Okay, now if I do 0.1 plus 0.1 plus 0.1 plus I am getting the correct answer, but I am running a little bit ahead of myself. There is a for loop. If you know what for loops are, I'll come back to this example in a few minutes. Okay, let us first introduce what for loops are. So this is one type. Now let us look at what the type of the first line is. Okay, if I do this, if I say type, okay, so what is this giving me? What is this?
String.
It's a string. Okay, so instead of an integer or a float, okay, now we have a string. What is a string? String contains a list of characters, okay, put in a certain sequence. Okay, now there are other, let me show you a few more things that you could possibly do in Python. Okay, let us say I define I is equal to 1, okay, and j is equal to 2. Okay, now what will be I plus j?
3.
Okay, so it gives you your output. Okay, you have other possibilities also. You can do I minus j. Okay, what will that give you? -1. That is correct. Now what about I? This is the symbol for multiplying. Okay, I star j. Similarly, you have something called as integer division. What is integer division? It divides by or floor division. Okay, it divides by whatever your output is going to be and takes the floor of that. Okay, so in this particular case, what should your answer be? Any idea, Sridhar?
0.5.
0.5.
No, it takes the floor. It only gives an integer output. It's a floor division. So it divides
So 0.
and converts it into an integer. Okay, how does it convert it into an integer? By truncating your output. Okay, it does not round off. Okay, it truncates your output. So your output is 0. Okay. Now, if I were to do insert I by j, what do you expect here?
0.5.
Remember I and j both are integers. Okay, what do you think is going to be I by j?
Float.
Huh?
Float.
Yeah, it will automatically convert them into float. Okay, let us see what happens. It gives you 0.5. Okay, it gets converted into a float. Let me see what type is. Okay, it gets converted into a float. Okay, so there is one more function that you might have you might encounter, which is I%j. What do you know? Anybody can guess what is I%j?
Gives the remainder.
Yeah, it's the mod. It's a mod function or modulus function. Okay, so what is 1 modulus 2?
1.
It will divide. Yeah, good. It will divide by I by j and give you your remainder. Okay. Now, if I want to do a power, okay, I star j. Okay, what do you expect is the output going to be? So this is power. Okay, I to the power j. So
One.
in many other programming languages, we use this caret. Okay, caret is used in other languages for power. Okay, but in this case, what is used? So I have introduced something else. I've introduced another syntactical item today, which is that this hash. Okay, what is this used for?
Comments.
For writing comments. Okay, these are not seen by your interpreter. So the thing that is running your code is called as interpreter. Okay, this is not seen by the interpreter at all. Okay, so the only thing that it sees is anything before the pound sign. This is called as pound or hash sign. Okay, so this is used for commenting in Python. So anything that is before this, only that gets seen. Okay, so if you see this, what is I power j? In this case, since let me change my I. Okay, let me say I is equal to 3 now. Okay, now I have defined. Now let us do I power I j again. Is that okay? So it is 3 to the power 2. So this is the basic arithmetic operations that you can possibly do in Python. So let us say I define what do you expect this is going to do? So I plus j star 2. What do you think this is going to do? Either The reason I'm asking you is because you are probably, and that is the reason I'm covering all of this. Okay, because I want you to understand it.
7 it will be.
It will be 7. What is I? I is 3. J is 2. So what is? How does it? What kind of precedence do these operators have? Okay, like similar to arithmetic. I mean, arithmetic we have BOD mass. No, have you heard of BOD mass? BOD MAS.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a similar precedence over here. So here, so if you look at this, if I do, my output is going to be 7, because 3 plus 2 to the power 2 star 2 is 4. Okay, 4 plus 3 is 7. What about if I do this? What do you expect to happen here? What will happen first in this particular case?
Multiplication and then
Sure?
yes, sir.
Squaring.
No, the power will happen.
Pascal.
As far as I know, I think power should happen first. Let us see. Did it happen or no? What happened first? The powering happened or the multiplication happened? So 2 to the power 3 is 8. 8 times, what is J? J is 2 now. Yeah. So 8 times 2 is 16 plus 3 is 19. So 2 to the power 3 happened before multiplication. Okay. Is that all right? But if you wanted, let us say you wanted everything to happen before the powering, okay, before taking the power. Okay, how would you do that? You could assign, put a bracket, okay, similar to what you would do in normal arithmetic algebra. Okay, so this is what it's going to do. So what does the thing inside the bracket amount to? What is that? I plus J 7. 7 to the power 3 is how much? 343. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great. So now, let us say I want to, I have these two numbers, I and J are known to you. Okay, so let me say I print I, comma J. Okay, this is how they look like. Okay. Now I want to replace these two values. Okay, I want to replace the value of I and J. How do I do that? Sridhar, do you have any idea?
Exchange.
Yeah, I want to exchange the values of I and J. How do I do that? What algorithm would you apply to do this? Have you seen this before?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Then let us say we define a new variable called K. Okay. And let us say I call that as this is equal to J. So what is this going to do? What is this going to do? This is going to assign the value of J to K. Okay. So what is the value of K now?
2.
If I do this, it is going to be 2. Okay. Now I have a variable, third variable, which is available to me, which is K. Okay. Now, if I do what? If I want to, now J is no longer useful to me. Is J useful to me now? Because I already have the value of J in K. Okay. Whatever the value of J was, it's not really useful to me now. Okay. So what can I do? I can assign J is equal to I. Okay. J is equal to K will not be useful. Then I'll go back from J to J. Okay. That is not the point. I want J to become equal to what the previous value of I. Okay. So that I am assigning J is equal to I. Okay. And I'll call what? Now what should I do?
K.
Now J has the
I-
old value of I and K has the old value of J. So what should I do about I is equal to
I equal to K.
K? Good. Okay. So now if I do print I comma j, what do I get? I get 2 comma 3. So now previously I had the value 3 and j had the value 2. Okay, now I have successfully converted I into the previous value of j and j into the previous value of I. Okay, so this is the simplest algorithm that you can write for some simplest computer program that you can write. Okay, obviously we do not usually write the programs in this manner. We usually put them all lines together, but I'm just showing step by step. Okay, so now let us say I want to, but Python is a little bit smarter than this. This is the way you would do in older languages. Python has an inbuilt function. Okay, so now the new value of I and j are 2 and 3. Okay, you could do this in Python. Okay, I comma j is equal to j comma I. Okay, you can do this and print I comma j. Okay, so you do not have to worry about the algorithm either. Python allows you to do this. Okay, so if you do this, what is going to happen? Again, the values of I and j have been swapped. Is that all right? So you don't have to write this many lines of code. Okay, in Python, the way it works is that before any assignment happens, okay, so what do I mean by assignment? Before anything, this equal to sign, the assignment happens here. Okay, before anything happens here, this complete function is calculated and stored in the memory somewhere. Okay, everything on the right hand side is calculated and stored in the memory somewhere. Okay, so j and I, the values of j and I are stored in the memory somewhere. So even if I do I is equal to I comma j is equal to this does not really matter. Okay, because whatever the value of j comma I is stored somewhere in the memory, and I comma j is assigned to that particular value. Okay, so which is not usually the case in other programming languages, but in this particular programming language, everything that is written on the right hand side is calculated before the assignment happens to the left hand side. Okay, so let us look at something. So you could also assign multiple, so this was just an example, you could also assign multiple variables like this way. Okay, so you could say ijk is equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. This is a perfectly valid assignment. Usually in other programming languages you could not do that, but in this language you can do this. Okay, so if I say print I comma j comma k, you'll get this. Okay, so whenever I put a comma in print, it automatically puts a space between those two values. So if I put a comma between I and j, there is a space present over here between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. Okay, is that okay till now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So now let us try to write another program. We will not do any intermediate intermediates, printing and all those things. We'll write the complete code at once. Okay, so let us start. If you want to write, so I'm writing a comment here. Find whether the number is odd or even. Let us say I want to do that. Okay, so I am now tell me, how can I do this? Let us say,
Divide by 2 and mod, if mod of.
so let me do one more thing. Let me define a new term. Okay, let us call this term, this is x. Okay, let me define a new so we'll, all the strings are written in quotes. Okay, either single quote or double quote, it does not matter. So please enter your number. Okay, so I'm asking whoever is the user of this particular program to please enter whatever number you want to enter. Okay, and the reason I am giving an int here is because any input that is given by a user is automatically assumed to be a string. Okay, so you have to specifically convert that string into an integer. Okay, so do you agree that even 1, 2, 3 can be a string? Okay, what do you think? Is this a string? 1, 2, 3. Is this a string?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it can be a string. Okay, so we have, so everything that has been entered by a user using this particular command, input stands for that. So whenever I press do this, okay, so let me try entering it here. Okay, so when I run this, it will ask me, please enter your number. Okay, what is the number I want to give? Let us say 75. Okay, so that 75 automatically is a string. Okay, so let me do this. Let me show you. So print type X. Okay, so if I don't convert it into an integer, then what is going to happen? Let us say I say 879. Okay, so now let's see what is the type of X. X is a string. Okay, so even if you enter a number, okay, the program assumes it that it's a string. So you have to specifically convert it into an integer by using this function. Okay, so this is the function. Usually almost all functions in Python are written in this form. Okay, this is a function name int, and in the brackets is the input to that function. Okay, so when I say type X is a function and X is the input to the function. Similarly, print is the function and type X is the input to that particular function. Okay, so I have converted X into an integer. Now what should I do next? Sridhar, what should I do next?
Like
If I
I
want to
should,
say, huh?
like I should assign, like if it is odd, then
So how
the
do you
remainder.
how do you check that? Based on what we discussed in the code above this line, how do you say I can do that? I can check that. Does any of these functions help you in determining whether it's an even number or an odd number? What about this one? Does this help you? What is this function? Mod function or mod operator, to be more correct. Will this help me or no?
Sir,
What should I do? What should I check for now? I should check whether X mod
mod.
2 is equal to 0, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if it is equal to 0, what does that mean? So this is the a new construct that I'm introducing. So there is an if. You can check something. Okay, these are conditional statements based on if this is true, then you should do something. Okay, one more thing that I wanted to mention is that Python is very different from other languages. If you have used any other languages, we usually use brackets to denote blocks of code, but in this case it is this white spaces. Okay, so the standard for Python is that you should use 4 spaces. Okay, 4 spaces for showing an indent. So this is called as indent. Okay, INDENT, indent. Okay, so 4 spaces is the standard for having an indent in Python. Okay, so this this indent means that this is a part of what is written on the top. Okay, so if X mod 2 double equal to stands for, so if you look at single equal to, what does single equal to stand for?
Assign operator.
Assignment. Okay, you're assigning something on the right hand side to the left hand side, whereas this double equal to stands for whether this is,
Comparison.
yeah, it is to check whether the left hand side is equal to the right hand side, and if this is true, then what happens? Then it gives true as the output. Okay, and If it is not correct, then it gives false as the output. Okay, and if this is true, then what should happen? Print what? X is odd. Okay,
Even, sir.
sorry, galat.
So even.
Even. Okay, if this is true, then X is even. Else what should happen?
Print X is odd.
This does not work properly anyway. So we have to this else is at the same indent as your if. Okay, so you have to go back in indent. Is that correct? Yeah. So print. Please understand that this language you cannot add any spaces anywhere. Okay, spaces are very important in Python, and everything should have the same indent. Okay, so if and else should have the same indent. Okay, so X is odd. Okay, so let us try running this. Let us say I do 87. What does it do now? X is odd, 87 is odd. Okay, now I'll try running again. Then I do 76. 76 is even. Is that all right? Any confusion to anybody?
Sir,
Yeah,
that X is equal to 0, the 2 dots are there, no, sir? Like
yeah.
when
So that
the
is a
dot-
that is a colon. So the line the key next to L contains a semicolon and a colon. Okay, so we use, so this is the syntax. This is called as syntax. Okay, let me type it. Okay. So it's syntax. Okay, so this is the syntax of Python, that if you are using the if statement, okay, if you're using the if statement, the next line, this means that if this is true, this stands for then you should do this. Okay, and else then this again colon stands for then you should do this set of statements. Okay, so you do not have to. Yeah, what was your question? Either.
Is there any specific meaning for those dots? In earlier cases, we are not using dots.
See, in earlier cases, we did not have our lines on multiple, means whatever instructions you were giving, they were not connected to each other. So this is showing a sort of connection between this line and this line. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And more importantly, it does not matter whether it shows a connection or not. This is the syntax that the programmer who designed this particular language decided that this is how it should work. So if you're writing an if statement, here you write your condition, whatever condition you're checking for. And if this condition is true, then the next line should be executed. Okay. So in this case, only one of these two lines gets executed. Please understand that. In the previous code, everywhere, all the lines were getting executed. But in this case, only one of these two lines gets executed. Okay, either the first one or the second one. Both do not get executed. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now, if you wanted to add more lines, let us say x divided by 2 is equal to 0, x mod 2 is 0. Now I want to say that I want to also see what the value x by 2 is. Okay, then I could do this also. This is fine. Okay, what is this going to do? Now, if I do this, let us say I say 87. Okay, so in this particular case, what is my output going to be? Output is going to be that 87 is odd. Okay, other than that, there is no output. So if you were to look at the flow of your code, how did it run? First, this line was executed. Okay, this line is executed irrespective of what happens, because this is outside your conditional if and else statements. Okay, so it will happen in any without any means it will happen always. Okay, now the second statement gets executed. Okay, if x mod 2 is equal to 0, which it is not true. Okay, so what will happen? These two lines will not what? These two lines will not get executed. Okay, what is going to happen? Your lines corresponding to else will get executed. What is the line corresponding to else?
X is odd.
X is odd. Okay, now let us try running this again. Now let us say I give an even number. What does it happen? What happens now?
Like
Two lines after the if, both the lines get executed. Okay, both these lines get executed after if. Okay, so these two lines are also connected to each other. Okay, they may not appear to be connected, but they are connected through this indent. Okay, this indent is ensuring that these two lines get executed at the same time. Not at the same time exactly, but one after another. Okay, so if this particular conditional enters this particular region, then this will also get executed and this will also get executed. Now I will show you one thing. Okay, so let us say I do print odd. Okay, and I do this, and I do another print so what happens in this case? Let us see. Let us say I give 87. Okay, I really like 87. I don't know why today so many times I'm giving 87. So what has happened in this case?
Like after x is equal to, it came to else and then it executed that two statements.
It executed these two statements and this was executed regardless of whether this was executed or not. Okay, so I'll show you another example. Okay, let me I have copied and pasted this again. Now I'll run this again. Okay, now let us say I enter 88. So what happens in this case?
After x mod is equal to two statements print executed and then came to last print.
Yeah, so the last one is getting executed irrespective of whatever this if else is doing, because that is not a part of if else. Part of if else, if it were part of if else, then it would be within this particular indent. Okay, so it would be indented by one block. Okay, so if I were to do this, okay, then what would happen? And now if I enter 88, what is going to happen?
It will give even and 44.
Yeah, it will not give you checking for indent. Okay, yeah, good. Sridhar is making great progress today. Okay, so now using this logic, I'll give everybody 5 minutes. Okay, it's a 5-minute break. We have been almost 1 hour. So I'll give you 5 minutes break, but that 5-minute break is only for me, not for you. This 5-minute break using this, whatever I have written here, try writing a code in your own Python notebooks where it checks for whether a number is divisible by 2 and 3. Okay, so your new code is check whether the number is divisible by 2 and 3. Okay, so you'll have 3 possible outputs or 4 possible outputs. One will be it is divisible by both 2 and 3. Okay, it is divisible by 2 but not 3. It is divisible by 3 but not 2. It is divisible neither by 2 nor by 3. So there are 4 possible outputs that you can get. So try writing a code for that. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. So 5 minutes break. Are you done? Anybody done?
So AND operation. So we will use double AND, no, for AND operation.
Double
Double AND.
for AND operation?
Yes, sir.
No, we don't use double AND. We use the English A and D, small a and D.
Okay. Okay, so that is it's giving invalid syntax.
Okay. Are you done, Sridhar? Sridhar, are you there or you left?
For two conditions I written, sir. For divisible or not like that. So I am writing for another.
Okay.
So else if operation is written as else dot if, or
No,
is there some other?
else if is written as elif, ELIF.
Sir, done.
Good. Who is it, Sanjeev?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So done.
Good. So you can complete it later on if you are not done it yet. Let me show you what I have done. Okay, so I have written my code two ways. First thing is using nested loops. Okay, we call this as nested. Okay, this not loop here, nested conditional statements. Okay, nested if statement. So what do we have here? I have one if statement and then another if statement which is a part of that if statement. Okay, which is contained in that if statement. So first thing that I'm checking for is whether x is divisible by 2. If x is divisible by 2, then I'm checking for whether x is divisible by 3. So this whole thing, for this whole part, x is divisible by 2. Okay, this has to be true for this whole thing. Okay, so if x is divisible by 3, then I'm saying that x is divisible by 2 and 3. Okay, that is true. Otherwise, x is divisible by 2 but not 3, because this whole thing already contains the condition that x is divisible by 2. Okay, but since this is not true, then x is divisible by 2 but not 3. Similarly, we have an opposing condition. What is this here? What does this part tell me? That x is what? Divisible on, huh?
Divisible by 3.
No, this tells me x is not divisible by 2. Okay, this is the else of x mod 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so this whole thing happens only when x is not divisible by 2. Okay, now this part is that x is then I'm checking for whether x is divisible by 3 or not. Okay, is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is one way of doing it. Let me show what we can do in the second one. In the second one, we are doing something called as means checking both these conditions at the same time. So this and is your logical and. So this is true. If this is true and this is true, then this whole thing is going to be true. Okay, so both of these have to be true for this to be operation, means this statement to be executed. Okay, so if x is divisible by 2 and x is divisible by 3, then I'll print that x is divisible by 2 and 3. This statement will only be executed. So this is a short form for else if. Okay, this will only be executed only if the first one was not executed. Okay, we will only reach here this whole thing only if this was not true. If this was incorrect, only then we will reach at this point. Okay, please understand that. Please understand the flow of control. Okay, the control reaches here only if this is not satisfied. The first condition is not satisfied. Okay, now it is going to check for whether x is divisible by 2 and x is not divisible by 3. So this this exclamation equal to stands for what? Can anybody guess?
Not
Not equal to. Okay, so this implies that x is divisible by 2 but not by 3, where x is divisible by 3 but not by 2. And finally, since none of these conditions met, what is the remaining thing remaining? It is, so we do not require an elif statement now, because we already know that these 4 conditions put together are your complete sample space. Okay, so the final one is going to be x is divisible by neither 2 nor 3. I'll send you this. You don't have to type it right now, so you can verify your own code. But did you understand the logic, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And please understand the flow of control. Okay, the control only moves to elif statement if the if statement were not true. Okay, it is not going to check. Once this is true, it is not going to check for any of this. This does not matter to it now. Okay, and if this becomes true, then this is not going to be checked at all. Okay, if this becomes true, it will never reach the here. Okay, so some like that. Okay, it will not even check for these conditions. Please understand that. It is not that it is going to check for these conditions. It is not going to check for these conditions at all. So if this were true and this were also true, it will never reach here if I'm using an elif statement. Okay, these statements do not have to be mutually exclusive. It is possible that this is also true and this is also true. Then also it will do only corresponding to the first statement. It will not even check for these conditions, even if they are true or not. Okay. Okay. So that is simple checking for 2 and 3 divisibility with 3 by 2 and 3. Now let us look
Sir.
at, yeah,
Sir, I guess we can remove the last condition in third statement.
third statement.
Because it will work on like sequentially. First condition is state that it is divisible by both of them. If it is not true, then second condition is state that it is divisible by 2. If it is not true, then it will come to a third condition. So we can remove last check. I mean, after the end part.
So what do you mean? This one?
Yes, sir.
Why?
I mean, if we remove, I guess it will work.
No, it
Just
will
like
not work.
before.
It will not work. Why will it work?
Uh,
Oh, so you
Because-
are okay. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, you are right. So if I'm reaching here, that means that x is not divisible by 3 and 2 both. Okay. So if I'm reaching here, yeah, that is all right. But I don't think that is for this particular class. I don't think that is very appropriate. Okay. Let us not go into that deep logic. Okay. Because there are people who don't know any even basic programming, so this will be too complicated for them. Yeah, you are right though. Thank you. If you didn't anybody did not understand about it, don't worry about it. Okay, it is between me and Varun.
Sir, understood.
You understood?
Question will set. Yes, sir.
Then it is fine. If you didn't understand, then don't worry about it. Not really that important right now. Okay, so now let us talk about strings. Okay, next topic we are going to talk about is strings. Okay, we already mentioned what strings are. Okay, a sequence of characters is called as strings. Okay. So now we use, so let us define a new variable called a, says good. Okay. So similarly, b is equal to, let me use double quotes, this is bad. Okay. Now let us say print a comma b. What is going to happen? This is good, this is bad. It puts us, I remember that it puts a space between good and this. Okay, it always puts a space between a and b automatically. Okay, now if I were to print type a and type b, what happens in this case? Both of them are strings. So you can define strings in either way. Okay, you can use single quotes or you can use double quotes. It does not matter. Okay, but only one kind. This, I don't think this will be acceptable. Okay, on one side I have a single quote, on the other side I have a double quote. Let us see what happens. This input is not recognized. Okay, so please make sure that you use one or the other on a single input. Okay, so let me do that. This will work fine. Now if I were to say print a 5, what do you think it is going to do? Any idea, anybody? What is this going to do?
Fifth letter of that string.
What is the fifth
Space.
character?
Space.
Space.
Let us
Ar-
I
how do you say that? Why do you say that, Varun?
sir, I guess the index that will start from 0 in Python.
You are right. make a mistake here. What is used for? Do they use a square bracket? Yeah, they use a square bracket. Now that was a mistake. So for anything that is this sort of becomes a string is like a vector. You can think of it as a vector or a matrix. Okay, like we have in normal other languages, you can think of this as a vector or a matrix, and the indexing of each of these characters starts from 0. Okay, so if you look at A's, so we could possibly type 0:5. What will this going to give you? Everything from 0 to 5 of A. Okay, so this is going to give you this, but it is not going to give you 0 to 5. Actually, this is a little bit different. So it is a range. So it will stop at 5. Okay, it will not go up to 5. 5 is it will stop before 5, before reaching 5. Okay, it will never reach 5. Okay, so that is the way this is the most confusing part of Python. Please understand that 0 to 5, if you write in this form, it does not, it will go only up till from 0 to where?
4.
It will keep on incrementing and it will stop before it becomes equal to 5. Okay, it will never reach 5. Okay, so it will stop at 4 in this particular case. Okay, so the indexing of this starts from, so we could also do print len A. What is this going to give you? What does this give you?
Length of the string.
Length of the string. Okay, now if I were to say I wanted to find out the last character of A. Why did I get an error?
Bracket.
If the length was 12, is there a mistake in the bracket? I don't think so. If length is 12, what is the last index? What is the last index going to be if the length is 12?
11.
11.
11. So that is why that was a mistake. So I was putting A of 12. Then A of 12 is going to give me what? An error, because the A of 12 does not, A12 does not exist. The final A is A11. Okay, is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm not getting.
You're not getting. So think of this is good as a vector. Okay, and the first index of that vector, do you understand index? Let us go to our trusty board. Okay, so this is, let me assign hold on a minute. Let me set up my computer properly for writing. So this space is good. Okay, so there are many ways your programming languages store your data. Okay, for example, integer and float, those are directly stored as their own values. They are their own data types. Okay, they are stored completely differently. But strings are stored completely differently as an array of characters. Okay, so how many characters does this have? Please count. We start counting from 0. Okay, so the first character is given an index equal to 0. Okay, so what is the second character going to be given as? 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, and then 11. Okay, now you can think of this as a matrix with these elements. Okay, now this matrix is a little bit different. In the matrices that we are talking about in our linear algebra course, we are talking about, then our indexing starts from where? 1. Is that all right or no? Either.
Yes, sir.
Our indexing, we call A11. No, what does A11 stand for? First row, first column. Okay, or if we were to talk about a row vector, let us say we have a row vector. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what is A1 in this case? It's going to be 1. Okay, now this is a new type of vector, okay, which is instead of containing numbers, this contains characters. Okay, so what is A0 going to be in this case?
T, sir.
T. Is that all right now? And what is A11 going to be?
D, sir.
Small d. Is that okay?
Yes.
So what I did there was I called this, instead of writing 11, because I don't know what the length was, I did not want to count. This is good. The number of letters in this is good. So what I used, there's an inbuilt function in Python which does what? It tells you the length of A. Okay, but it tells you length of A in a logical manner, which I don't think 0 to 11 is a logical reason. But anyway, let us not criticize the creators of Python too much. So if we have, so this is a square bracket. We always write this in square brackets. So I say A length of A. So what did this give me? What is the length of A? It is 12. So when I call A12, what should I get? Does it exist? A12 exist?
No, sir.
It does not exist. So it gives me an error. So when I put A length A minus 1, what does it give me?
11.
Yeah, it gives me the last value. Okay. Is that all right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where am I? Yeah. So we could also do something like this. To print, we don't have to worry about length also. If I want to print the last character of A, okay, how do I do that? I can do this also. Print A minus 1. What is this going to give me? It gives me D again. What is this? Can you guess what A minus 1 stands for now?
Indexing from backside.
Yeah, so these two are identical to each other. The line here and here, they are the same. Okay, so it starts counting from the back. Okay, so first one from the back. It does not start from 0 because 0 plus minus 0 is the same, so therefore it does not start from 0. So this is the first number from the back. Okay, so if I do R, is this good? If I do minus 4, Sridhar, what do you expect if I say print A minus 4?
G, sir.
What?
G.
G, good. Okay. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
So you can, there are other functions also, that other operations that you can do with strings also, such as A plus B. Obviously, A plus B is not defined. Okay, A is not a number that you can add to B. But if I do this, what do I get? What do you think happened here?
No space between.
No space between these two. Okay, so it created a new string by adding these two together. Okay, and this particular thing is called as concatenation. Okay, we are putting two strings together. Okay, we are attaching them together. That is called as concatenation. Okay, so you can concatenate two strings in this manner. Okay. So this was called as slicing. Okay, we are slicing a part of our string. Okay. What about if I do this? Can anybody guess what is this going to give me? If you have done Octave or MATLAB,
All the values.
all the values. Okay. So if you don't give print, then it only prints the last value. So therefore, I almost always write print. Okay, then it is, the output is really not sure what this notebook is going to do. So whenever you definitely want to print something, then always give a print. Okay. So this prints the entire. So A in brackets, square brackets, colon stands for all the values of T. Okay. So we already talked about input. One more thing is that you can define. So in older languages, you had only possibility of writing in. Well, let me add a new line now. So you only had possibility of writing in ASCII. Okay. But in this case, we can also write in Hindi, okay, or any language that you want, because the default encoding that they use is Unicode, which contains many different languages. Okay, so let us say I want to define a new variable h is equal to let us say I want to write something in Hindi. Obviously, I don't have a Hindi keyboard with me, so I'll use translate.google.com from, let us say, Hindi hai isme. English, from English to Hindi. This is good. Yeah, acha hai. Okay, so let us copy this and let us see if this works. It worked. Okay. Now it did not work till now. Let us see if it works. So print h. Okay. You can do that as well. You don't have to limit yourself as long as you have the correct. So the encoding is Unicode encoding, UTF-8. Okay. So we use.
So we can define variables also in Hindi.
I don't know. Probably not. Okay. I don't think there are any languages that allow you to define variables in Hindi, but there is a language called Julia. Okay. It is a very new up and coming language for scientific computing, Julia. Okay. I'm writing it here, Julia. Okay. The English name, Julia Roberts, like Julia. Okay. So in that you can define variable names in Greek letters if you want to. Okay, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, all those. Okay, in actual alpha. Okay, you could write alpha. Okay, is that all right? But I don't think
Yes,
you can give variable. Variable names are limited to only letters and numbers. Okay, so let me write that, clarify that. Good question, though, Mera. Variable names. So variable names are limited to. Do you understand what variable is, Shida? So A, B, C, whatever we define those. Okay, so those are variable names. And print, you can't name a variable as something like print, because print is in an inbuilt function of your language. So you cannot override those. Those are called as sacred words in one sense. Okay, so those are keywords. You cannot use those keywords as your variable names. It is almost always advised to not name your variables as A, B, C. I just showed that for this particular tutorial, but in your real world programming, it is a really bad idea to name your variables as A, B, C, or so on and so forth. Okay, you can use letters, capital or small, and then you have your underscore. Okay, so underscore, and then you have your numbers. Okay, so your variable name should start with either with letters, either capital or small. You can have underscores or numbers elsewhere. Okay, not in the beginning. Okay, so these are the only things that are allowed. And when I say letters, I mean English alphabet letters. Okay, Roman English. This is Roman alphabets, no? Am I right or no? A, B, C, D. I think it is Roman, but anyway, let us call it as English letters. Okay.
सर
Yeah.
आपने क्या बताया था UTF-8 सपोर्ट करता है ना?
Yeah.
ठीक है सर.
But that is only for your English part, means all the print, all the strings can be in, everything else has to be in its own, whatever English normal.
Yes, sir, I got
Only
it.
for strings, okay.
Yes.
Now let us, I think this is enough for today, already 1 hour and 45 minutes. I think we'll stop, we'll continue with this tomorrow, okay. What time?